Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're taking a look at Deus Ex, a 2000 first-person immersive sim published by Eidos Interactive. This is going to be a long video, so let's not waste any time and roll the intro video.
Your appointment to FEMA should be finalized within the week. I've already discussed the matter with the senator.
I take it he was agreeable?
He didn't really have a choice.
Has he been infected?
Oh yes, most certainly. When I mentioned that we could put him on the priority list for the ambrosia vaccine, he was so willing it was almost pathetic.
This plague, the rioting, is intensifying to the point where we may not be able to contain it.
Why contain it? Let it spill over into the schools and churches. Let the bodies pile up in the streets. In the end, they'll beg us to save them.
I've received reports of armed attacks on shipments. There's not enough vaccine to go around, and the underclasses are starting to get desperate.
Of course they're desperate. They can smell their death, and the sound they'll make rattling their cage will serve as a warning to the rest.
I hope you're not underestimating the problem. The others may not go as quietly as you think. Intelligence indicates they're behind the problems in Paris.
Bunch of pretentious old men playing at running the world. But the world left them behind long ago. We are the future.
We have other problems.
UNATCO?
Formed by executive order after the terrorist strike on the statue. I have someone in place, though. I'm more concerned about Savage. He's relocated to Vandenberg.
Our biochem corpus is far in advance of theirs, as is our electronic sentience, and their ethical inflexibility has allowed us to make progress in areas they refuse to consider.
The Augmentation Project?
Among other things, but I must admit that I have been somewhat disappointed in the performance of the primary unit.
The secondary unit should be online soon. It's currently undergoing preparation and will be operational within 6 months. My people will continue to report on its progress. Necessary, the primary will be terminated.
We've had to endure much, you and I, but soon there will be order again. A new age. Aquinas spoke of the mythical city on the hill. Soon that city will be a reality, and we will be crowned its kings. Not better than kings. Gods.
Okay, are we confused yet? Deus Ex is not shy about dumping information on you without anything approaching context. I mean, who are these guys? Why are they standing in a red hallway? What are they talking about? Don't worry, all will be revealed. This game is dense with story, and I'm going to talk about it in depth, so watch this video in chunks or grab a snack. Chapter timecodes will be in the description if you want to come back later. Let's go! After the intro cutscene is over, you just get dumped on a dock. We're playing as JC Denton, a cybernetically enhanced UNATCO agent. You start out with a gun and a riot prod, but that's it. Our tech guy calls us to let us know that our brother is on his way. Oh look, there he is.
Welcome aboard, Agent.
Paul.
We talked to him and learned that a group of terrorists called the NSF have attacked a shipment of plague vaccine and are holed up in the Statue of Liberty. They've also taken a UNATCO agent hostage, and the objective is for JC to go in by himself and tackle this problem solo. It's a little unrealistic to send one guy into this situation alone, considering the NSF terrorists have guns, body armor, defensive turrets, an automated robot with machine guns, mercenaries, and control the whole area surround a statue, but whatever. I don't need or want every aspect of a story to match up to reality, so long as the story is internally consistent and well written. But JC does make the very good point that he's underprepared, so Paul here gives us a choice between a sniper rifle, a mini crossbow, and a rocket launcher. I go with the mini crossbow because it's a sick concept for a weapon, and I have a ton of skill points in the pistol category anyway. It comes free with some tranq darts. We'll talk about them later. I break some crates, grab the items inside, find some more crates under the dock, smash them too, try not to drown, and now I'm ready. After grabbing the mini crossbow, I'm set free to tackle this problem in whatever way I see fit. This is the backbone of immersive sim games. They present a problem, give a few hints as to how you could tackle it, and then set you loose in their world to solve the problem by whatever means necessary. Sure, Paul over here stresses that we're police and we shouldn't be killing people if at all possible, but these guys are terrorists with guns, and they shoot on sight, so I'm not feeling too guilty about my tactics. Deus Ex is very sneaky about how it teaches the player how to do things. It never shoves tutorial notices in your face, doesn't force you to complete a glorified obstacle course before allowing you to play the game, and doesn't bog the screen down with objective markers. Instead, Liberty Island features Deus Ex's standard gameplay loops, but slowed down. There are enemies patrolling here and there, but moving slowly through dark areas will allow you to slip by undetected. If an enemy sees you, more will likely come to try and take you down. They are not shy about calling for help or attacking you from behind. The gameplay is pretty close to real life. Both you and enemies will die from just a couple gunshots, headshots are an instant kill even with no firearm training, and enemies spot you really quickly. This is not a modern stealth game where you could walk in front of somebody's vision 10 times before they start to get suspicious. If they see you, they've seen you, and will open fire. Also, the very first area is priming the player to be observant and constantly check their surroundings for hidden goodies, with a crowbar lying next to some crates indicating that these can be smashed, and some hidden crates under the dock teach the player that good items will be placed in harder to reach areas, rewarding exploration, observation, and cleverness. All of this together kind of forces the player to engage with the game on its terms. If you play this like a normal FPS, you're gonna die a lot. This brings me to another difference between Deus Ex and its shooter contemporaries. You aren't immediately an expert with every weapon you pick up. Sniper rifles, pistols, rocket launchers, grenades, all of these require extensive training to use effectively, and the game reflects this with the skill system. Skill points are earned mostly by completing objectives, with some minor amounts being granted for map exploration. You might get 400 skill points for tracking down an elusive suspect, but then you could get 50 skill points for getting to a hard to reach area. Skill points can be spent on this upgrade screen, and you can upgrade the same skill up to 4 times before the game considers you a master of that skill and locks you out from any more upgrades. You start out with some basic pistol training by default, but that doesn't make you invincible. Not to mention, as somebody who has fired a gun before, this aiming system is really great. You start out wildly inaccurate, but if you hold still and focus, you can eventually draw a bead on your target and fire off a shot. Not to mention, if you start moving, your crosshair goes wide again. You'll have to hold still if you want to hit your target, which is very true to life. Now, with extensive training and a bunch of accuracy weapon mods, you can make a weapon perfectly accurate even when moving, but that won't happen until you're halfway through the game or more, depending on where you put your skill points. Do you want to be better trained with your weapon of choice, or do you want to be better at hacking? You're going to have to choose, and the choice of where to put your skill points massively impacts how you play, since even basic training with most skill categories is expensive and only gets more so as you upgrade further. So I'm slinking around, taking down terrorists with gunshots and the occasional tranq dart when I come across the UNATCO headquarters. Wait, what? The HQ of this international anti-terrorist organization is across the street from where the terrorists are holed up? Okay. The guards sound annoyed that they have to hang back while some augmented freak gets it going by himself. One of them is selling arms and armaments outside HQ. I buy some tranq darts off them, raid the van nearby for supplies, and trot off to take down more bad guys. Let's talk about the tranq darts. Like everything else, the way they work feels pretty realistic to me. When you shoot someone with a tranq dart, they scream really loudly and start running towards you, making sure everyone nearby notices them freaking out, and then eventually collapse. Now, they are useful in wide open areas like this where I can backpedal and avoid the few gunshots they'll manage to fire at me, but a tranqed enemy can still kill you before he collapses if you're not careful. You can also load the mini crossbow with ordinary darts that just do damage. These aren't really useful unless you've mastered pistol-type weapons and have dumped a bunch of range and accuracy mods into your mini crossbow. If you have done that, you can take down enemies with a single dart to the head from a fairly good distance. It's silent, the darts can be recovered if you miss, and most importantly, it's cool. There are also flare darts that give off light. I don't know why I would ever use these. At first I thought they were supposed to set enemies on fire, but no, it's just for lighting up dark areas. I have a flashlight, so this is kind of superfluous. Oh well. Although I didn't notice this while playing, shooting an enemy in the arm with a tranq dart will usually make them drop their weapon. So you can instantly disarm an enemy and forget about them until they fall unconscious. That may not be the best idea though, as tranqed enemies will often try to set off alarms before collapsing. The game does not give you an inch. The commander of the terrorists is holed up at the top of the statue. To get inside, I could go straight to the front doors, but there are security systems and tons of troops patrolling that area. Instead, I clambered up on some boxes and was able to bypass almost everything, only having to deal with a few troops and no security systems. That's one of the great things about immersive sims. Paying attention and playing cleverly allows you to avoid or disable most of the stuff that could kill you, and if it looks like you can go somewhere, you almost always can. There is no preset path, no right way to play the game, but why is that important? Well, let's use an example from another well-known story-focused shooter, Half-Life 2. Early on in Root Canal, we turn a corner and see a mounted machine gun operated by 2 civil protection officers. We could charge it and gun down both of them, losing a lot of health and suit charge in the process, or we could do what the level designer clearly intended and take this obvious side path to get behind the gunners. It even has some cover placed right at the entrance of the tunnel, cluing the player in that this is the right path. Not to mention, There is no way to get to the gunner nest except this tunnel. Going back to Half-Life 2 after years of immersive sim games felt, in a bizarre way, claustrophobic. It borders on suffocating with how narrow and linear the levels are. Getting immersed in the world and paying attention to the small details isn't really rewarding since there are no alternative paths, no ways to get around or solve problems in any manner except the one true path dictated ahead of time by the level designer. Every discussion of Valve's level design I've ever seen has boiled down to Valve is genius, Valve is revolutionary, fall at the feet of Gabe Newell and worship his megamind, and I thought I must be missing something. I don't get it. These levels feel like corridors to me, just dull and uninteresting since I know there's only one way to do everything. I don't want to sound entirely negative on Half-Life 2, as I think much of the praise Valve gets is well deserved, but man, the level design is overpraised and overrated. The world building, the storytelling, the gunplay, the little details here and there, all of these are good, and the story of Half-Life continues to be really good to this day. I just don't enjoy playing Half-Life 2 because I can't really think to solve problems, and the game does very little to reward inventiveness. Immersive sim games are wide open worlds filled with obstacles that can be broken through or bypassed as you see fit. In a game like Deus Ex, exploring the world and being observant will reward you with resources and information, better equipping you to play the game. In Half-Life, it's harder to miss ammo and health than it is to find it, and every problem has one solution. One right way to solve it. This isn't necessarily a failure on the part of Half-Life's level designers, it's a personal preference. It's not that Half-Life is doing something wrong, but for my taste, walking down a narrow linear path sprinkled with ammo pickups and enemies feels incredibly dull. And goodbye however many viewers that cost me. Anyway, as we approach the top of the statue, our tech guy radios in and tells us that Gunther is still trapped on the ground floor, but we should keep going and capture the terrorist leader. Gunther is another UNATCO agent, another augmented agent. When the order came in to retreat, Gunther disobeyed and kept going forward, resulting in him getting captured. Realizing that I'll get a bigger bonus if I rescue the hostage and capture the terrorist leader, I sprint all the way down to the ground floor and spring Gunther from his cage before legging it back up the stairs to confront the leader of the NSF. He surrenders without a fight. I get a ton of skill points, pick up a weird blue canister, and I'm told to head back to UNATCO headquarters for a debriefing. Cool. While I'm wandering around UNATCO and stealing from my allies, let's talk about the gameplay in more general terms. The gunplay is kind of clunky, but it works overall. The pistol is your workhorse weapon for most of the first level, as it's likely the only thing you'll have decent training in to start with, does good damage, has plentiful ammo, and works at most relevant ranges. There's a small delay between each shot. It feels more like a double-action revolver than anything else, since you can't shoot semi-automatically. The good news is that the pistol drops enemies in 1 or 2 shots, and the sound it makes is chunky. Scattered around the island are these little upgrade mods that can be used to improve some aspect of a weapon. You can add a scope, a laser sight, increase clip size, accuracy, decrease reload time, etc. I found myself dumping all of these into my pistol for the first level, and it paid off. With advanced pistol training and a few accuracy mods, the 10mm becomes a pretty good sniping tool. I even put a scope on it later. The mini crossbow doesn't do too well in straight combat, being more of a stealthy weapon, but it has its niche as a way to silently eliminate single targets, or as a way to get pursuing enemies off your back by tranking them. Tranked enemies flinch periodically before going down, so if a troublesome enemy is chasing you, shooting them with a trank dart can buy you time to draw a bead on them with a more powerful gun, or just run away. There's a sawn-off shotgun that can hold 4 rounds, takes forever between shots, and is generally not that useful. There's also an assault shotgun that uses the same ammo, can hold 10 rounds, fires in full auto, and is just in every way better than the sawn-off. There's a stealth variant of the pistol that holds more ammo, does less damage, and is almost completely silent. I never use this, as I'd already upgraded my non-stealth pistol and prefer killing enemies in 1 shot. Speaking of which, the game has a 30-06 sniper rifle, which can also be silenced. I call BS. Here's a real 30-06 being fired.
Do I feel steady? I don't know.
I don't care how far in the future Deus Ex is supposed to be, no rifle with bullets this big is ever going to be this quiet. But as far as realism goes, I do like how the view bobs insanely when you scope in. Again, as someone who has actually fired rifles before, this is pretty true to life. The only way to completely eliminate the view swinging like that is to train up to master level in rifles, which I did do. Not that I got much use out of the rifle for the first few levels. The scope swaying so much makes it near impossible to use until you max out your training. Thankfully, the game lets you no-scope enemies at no cost to accuracy. The game has melee weapons, most of which I never use for anything except breaking crates. There's also 4 grenade types: explosive for humans and turrets, EMPs for laser tripwires and bots, gas grenades, which we'll talk about later, and scramblers, which can turn any bot to your side, causing them to shoot an enemy. Scramblers were also so rare I never used them. The explosive grenades, or LAMs, are powerful enough to end a lot of potential fights before they begin, especially since you can plant them on walls to act as proximity mines. A forward-thinking player can kill enemies before even seeing them by planting a LAM in the right spot. Your inventory is handled in a pretty interesting way. You have this grid, and more powerful items tend to take up more space. The pistol and grenades only take up one slot, but the rifle hogs like 5 squares, and the rocket launcher takes up almost half of your space. Taking the rifle and rocket launcher means you won't have room for the assault rifle or the auto shotgun. You have to make hard choices about which items you think you'll need, and the weapons you choose dictate how you'll approach certain situations. I engaged with most fights from a huge distance away, picking people off with a rifle and my massively upgraded pistol. When I was in close range combat, I struggled without a shotgun or assault rifle to keep enemies at bay, but the rifle was helpful at all other points. It dropped enemies in one shot, where the pistol would often take 2 or 3 at a long distance, and has the longest range of any weapon in the game. I had made a choice to stick with long range weapons. It was hugely advantageous in many scenarios, but ended up hurting me in others.
We'd like to interrogate him.
Uh-oh.
You like gas? The gas grenades are incredible. Anytime I had to deal with a large group of enemies in close quarters, I would toss a gas grenade into their midst and gun them all down while they were choking on the green vaporous mist. Not only does the gas instantly disable any enemy it touches, the pose they get stuck in rubbing their eyes makes headshots dirt simple to land, especially since they're not moving. And this is without any upgrades in the grenade skill. The gas does hurt JC, and I often had to wait around for a long time while the gas cleared up after killing everyone, since it hangs around for a while. But, that's my fault. The game isn't all about shooting, however. The environment is packed with detail. Notes and newspapers to read, books, emails, conversations to overhear, posters, info terminals, people to talk to, item stashes to raid. The world is chock full of narrative, and it's really easy to get sucked in. Despite the graphics being old, this game is so much more immersive than most modern games. That's how effective all these little details are, and the writing is generally pretty terrific. The newspapers feel like real articles. The people aren't just NPCs handing out side quests. They talk about their beliefs, their fears, their position in the world. They add to the immersion by being three-dimensional, rich, well-written characters. The game quotes Voltaire, Thomas Paine, debates the concept of God and government. Deus Ex sprints where modern games crawl. And the game talks about so much more. AI, human augmentation, surveillance. When was the last time you heard of a video game seriously floating the concept of a plutocracy, let alone using the word in its proper meaning and context? Deus Ex has better writing than most movies, never mind games. When a character talks about their beliefs, I don't feel like the writer is trying to shove a political agenda down my throat. I feel like this character has these beliefs. It feels organic and seamless. Not to mention that the game is sometimes downright prescient. Government officials using a worldwide pandemic as a cover to seize more power and exploit access to the vaccine as leverage, riots in the streets, homeless people everywhere. This game came out in the year 2000, but it could easily have been made today with how familiar some of it feels. On that topic, this game is incredibly grounded. I would classify it as hard science fiction. There are military mechs walking around, but these could easily be made in real life. The nano-augmentation our character has is probably the most unrealistic part. Other than that, yeah, all of this feels possible. 90% of the environments have no futuristic stuff in them. I mean, hey, in the future, we'll still have low-budget hotels. Who would have guessed? By the way, it's great that the owner of the hotel in New York is named Mr. Renton. Isn't that lovely? The maps in Deus Ex are pretty huge, and I don't remember one instance of an invisible wall. Most areas are large and densely packed with detail, which means it can take 40 minutes to an hour to complete an area that in a modern shooter would take you 10 minutes at most. But it never gets boring, because there's so much to read, listen to, look at, and engage with even without enemies. And even with all that, with how big the maps are, with how much there is to discover, I can now shock you with the reveal that this game takes up less than a gigabyte of storage on a hard drive. Considering how modern games can at a minimum take up 30 to 40 gigs, I find it a little bit curious. Deus Ex provides such a cohesive and complete experience while requiring less than a 100th of the space of modern shooters. Turns out you don't need fancy graphics to have a good time. That is, unless you're the type of person that buys every new Call of Duty game on release, spending $70 annually to play the same game and looking down your nose at people who don't. Yeah, if you're one of those people, you probably won't enjoy Deus Ex. I mean, it has reading in it. Ew. Augmentations! I can't believe I've gone this long without talking about the augmentations. Yeah, you're a cybernetically enhanced nano-augmented agent, and that means special nano superpowers. Yes! Remember that weird blue canister I got at the top of the Statue of Liberty? Throughout the game, you can occasionally find these blue canisters containing specific augmentations which can be installed with medbots. Each canister contains 2 augmentations you have to choose between, and picking one permanently locks you out of the other. For example, a canister that contains speed enhancement and run silent. You can have super speed or stealthier movement, but not both. I went with super speed since it also increases jump height and decreases fall damage. It's super useful for accessing hidden paths and secret areas, let me tell you. I also had super strength for moving heavy objects, health regeneration, subdermal armor to make me resistant to bullets, and a spy drone. The spy drone is incredible. Not only can you pilot it anywhere, but it can be detonated at any time to produce an EMP attack. I used this so frequently to take down those military bots, since I had 0 grenade training and couldn't throw EMP grenades very far at all. Not only that, but it could be used to scout out areas ahead of time. I had a radar cloak, which renders me invisible to bots, turrets, and cameras. It drains a ton of power, so I rarely used it, but it came in handy like 2 times. This came at the cost of regular invisibility, which makes you invisible to organics only. That probably would have been a lot more useful, but augmentations are permanent, so I was stuck. I also installed a targeting augmentation that I rarely used. It says it boosts accuracy, but what I didn't know, and what the game fails to tell you, is that targeting also boosts damage and reduces reload time and recoil, depending on upgrade level. That's insanely useful, but I thought it only boosted accuracy, and since my pistol was already quite accurate, I didn't use it too much. The augmentations are great. They provide a massive advantage in certain specific scenarios without ever overshadowing the firearms. They fit in well with Deus Ex's setting and make me feel like a cybernetically enhanced super agent without ever robbing me of tension or making me feel too powerful. The bioelectric charge that all augmentations run off of is a limited resource. You can use biocells to recharge, but there are only so many of those in a level. Occasionally there are bots that recharge you for free, but those are not common. Overuse of your augmentations will see you drained of power and completely helpless before the level is even halfway done. Firearms are almost always your best option for dealing with most situations, and the augmentations work as an advantage on top of guns, not replacing them. It's another thing that adds to the realism. You may be a nano-augmented super soldier who was grown in a test tube, but your upgrades are worthless if you run out of batteries. That being said, the balancing on the augmentations isn't perfect. Regeneration trivializes a lot of the later game's tension by making health packs almost a non-requirement. I had health packs, I just didn't need to use them all that much because playing patiently combined with the regen aug meant I basically never had to worry about my health again. Aqualung is pointless, since the game has rebreather masks and swimming skills, both of which can be upgraded. There is practically never a situation in which run silent is better than speed enhancement unless you're playing a pure stealth run, which is a very specific situation that most players won't be in. Not to mention, radar transparency is so draining on power that you have to pump upgrades into both it and power recirculation for it to be usable for more than a few seconds at a time, which rendered it worthless for much of the game since I had other things to upgrade. I like the idea of having to choose your upgrades and being permanently stuck with them once chosen. In some situations, it's a really interesting choice. I love the spy drone, but equally interesting is aggressive defense, the other option in the same slot. It's an ability that prematurely detonates any missile fired at you, with more upgrades causing the explosives to detonate closer and closer to the enemy that fired it. That's so cool, and can easily be used to make missile enemies blow themselves up very consistently. But if you take it, you won't be able to stealthily take down the mech robots, which would normally require multiple rockets or EMP grenades to destroy. But at other times, it kind of falls flat. I mean, do you want to heal yourself over time? Or do you want better lungs for underwater breathing? Bear in mind, most required swimming sections will have a rebreather nearby. The augmentation system is at its best when I have multiple interesting choices, any one of which feels like a game changer, but I can't have them both. It just doesn't always shake out that way, but overall, it works. Deus Ex has simple but decent graphics. In 2000, these were stellar, and they've aged remarkably well. Sure, the people can look a bit like puppets, but it's not so bad as to rip me out of the experience or anything. All the animations are very simple, and the enemies don't really differ much in how they hold weapons. A shotgunner and a flamethrower will look pretty much identical until you get set on fire. I hated flamethrowers on my first playthrough, because I never spotted them until I was taking fire damage, and getting set on fire can be a guaranteed death if you don't have enough health packs or the regeneration aug. Aside from that though, everything works well. It's all very grounded around it, which helps in getting you sucked in. Not to mention, every single level of Deus Ex is either indoors or takes place at night. This adds to the moody, oppressive atmosphere, as well as helping you feel like a sneaky secret agent. And speaking of atmosphere, let's talk about the music. Deus Ex has some exquisite music. Most of it is a perfect fit for the area it's set in, and the main theme gets you pumped to unravel a conspiracy. So good. Most areas have an ambient theme, a conversation theme, and a combat theme, with the ambient theme usually being a composed, downbeat, calming track that sets an air of quiet tension. The conversation themes have a touch more melody to them, giving conversations a decent aura without overpowering the actual words being said. The combat themes are clunky. They're not bad, it just sounds like the composer ran into the limitations of the music software here. But some tracks really stand out. The MJ12 conversation theme is just gorgeous. And pretty much everything you hear in Paris is wonderful. And then we get to Hong Kong and... I don't know why, this track just makes me laugh. It starts out ridiculously stereotypically Chinese before evolving into a more unique and interesting piece. But since music loops while you're wandering around, eventually it will go back to... And I laugh every time. It's a good track. Overall, Deus Ex has wonderful music, with just a few tracks feeling rough around the edges. I give it a thumbs up. Speaking of sounds, the voice acting in this game is amazing. All the main characters have real conviction and come across like they really care about what they're saying, which goes a long way in making them feel real. Walton Simons is a great Deuter antagonist, and honestly has one of the most perfect voices I've ever heard for a slimy, impatient government bureaucrat.
Denton, Walton Simons here. What an expensive mistake you turned out to be. I left with the troops to kill you because frankly I don't have the patience to wait for one of those damn kill switches to work.
Bob Page, his partner, doesn't miss a beat either.
I captured your daughter an hour ago.
Tiffany.
She's been quite forthcoming.
He's delightfully hateable. The main man, J.C. Denton himself, is portrayed excellently.
Don't negotiate.
Not only is every line of his immensely quotable, but the lines are delivered with such conviction and gusto by an actor who clearly really cared, making him one of the most memorable video game protagonists of all time.
I don't think Page Industries is going to leave one lying around for you to use. Not after you blew up the one in Hong Kong.
I was never properly trained in its operation.
Laugh it up, Denton.
And when we get to Hong Kong, the voice acting escalates to hilarious levels.
The Romanos path is closed to Guilo. One called Tracer Tong. Heard the name?
I know you. I know who you are.
Mother Chow, Mr. J.C. Denton.
In the flesh. As dark and serious as his brother.
It is so clear to me that these are Americans trying and failing to put on Chinese accents. I don't know why, it all feels very endearing for some reason. Like watching your favorite child trip over a prop in a middle school stage production of Hamlet. Overall, the aesthetics of Deus Ex have aged very well. It all comes together very smoothly despite the rough edges and is only occasionally amusing. I'm going to come back to the plot now, and know that I'll be truncating things and speaking in broad strokes so that this video isn't 3.5 hours long. We do a few missions for UNATCO fighting against the NSF terrorists, recovering stolen vaccine barrels, putting down insurgents, destroying a big generator, endless fun. But little things keep happening, small hints that UNATCO isn't quite what it seems. First of all, Anna Navarre is a psychopath. Literally. She has apparently gone on massive shooting sprees in the past and only likes you if you kill lots of people and stroke her ego. Second of all, UNATCO is in charge of distributing the vaccine and is prioritizing politicians and other powerful people over anyone else, making sure senators and congressmen get their doses first. The extremely weak justification for this is that in order to keep society running, we have to protect the most important people. Never mind that truckers, farmers, and power plant operators do more to keep society running than a congressman ever will in his entire life. Meanwhile, the NSF wants to give out the vaccine to anyone and everyone, since this Grey Death virus is more deadly than COVID. If you pay attention, you can pick up pretty early on that not all is as it seems at UNATCO, but you learn it for a fact during this mission. It starts out innocently enough with us recovering another stolen vaccine barrel, but halfway through the mission, we get this as an update from our tech guy.
This is the terminal at LaGuardia owned by Juan Ivanovich Lebedev. We're certain based on what you've discovered that he's working with terrorists. Your orders are to locate and kill him. We're sending you a map of the airfield.
That tone of voice doesn't inspire confidence that we're working for the good guys, but let's press on. Many minutes later, we find that Jet Lebedev is on, and Paul is here.
You can relax, JC. I told the troops to stand down. That's right. I'm working for the NSF. I'll meet you at the 747.
He confesses that he's been working for the NSF on the info link and tells us to meet him. Apparently the Grey Death isn't a natural virus at all, but a man-made biological weapon that was synthesized in a lab and intentionally released on the populace.
Everyone up to the president is at UNATCO's mercy as long as UNATCO controls the supply of ambrosia.
Since UNATCO controls access to the vaccine, they have unlimited leverage to control any infected country and now wield immense political power. He says we can talk to Lebedev if we want more proof, so I get onto the jet and after being lost for a few minutes, find Lebedev and shoot him. Yeah, I was going full henchman. I don't want to betray my agency. We're the good guys. Go UNATCO! And because this is a good game, I don't just get an instant game over for not doing what my brother tells me to. Anna Navarre congratulates me, Paul disappears, I get in a chopper and head back to HQ. Everyone is shocked by Paul's betrayal of UNATCO. And in the break room, I learned something interesting. Walton Simons here has nano augmentations extremely similar to my own. In fact, all of his augmentations are ones you can obtain in the game, which is a pretty cool bit of consistency. JC questions why the director of FEMA needs physical combat augmentations, saying he works behind a desk. Walton gets weirdly offended about it?
But you're the director. You work behind a desk.
Am I behind a desk right now? No, I'm not.
Then he leaves. Okay, time to go see the boss. It's here that Manderley drops a gigantic truth bomb on us. The moment UNATCO found out Paul had betrayed them, they remotely shut down his augmentations and activated his kill switch.
Activated what?
He's our enemy now. He's gone, JC. The Coalition wants you to understand that he's just another terrorist, like the ones that have died by your very hand this evening.
Can they really kill him? With the press of a button?
Yes, and you too. So take these orders seriously.
A built-in mechanism to kill any augmented agent they lose control of. And it turns out JC has a kill switch too. Well, that's worrying. He then sends us on a mission to Hong Kong to find a man named Tracer Tong. Outside, our chopper pilot Jock reveals he's taking us not to Hong Kong, but to New York to talk with Paul. Yeah, the game eventually does just force you into betraying UNATCO, which I'm fine with. I don't think branching paths and massively altered storylines depending on what the player does is even possible, let alone something game devs should always push for. A game story being purely linear isn't a bad thing. I just don't like the game world to be purely linear. That's the main thing. Back at the Ton Hotel, Paul is in a bad way. The kill switch isn't instantaneous, he has about 24 hours to live. Since time is ticking, he begs us to go to a nearby building and send an encrypted message of warning to the NSF and other freedom fighter groups that he's aligned with. And with that, I'll be flushing my shiny reputation at UNATCO down the toilet. Ah well, Paul's my bro, so off I go. He says he has proof that UNATCO takes payoffs, that the virus is man-made. I can't wait to see it. He still hasn't shown any proof yet, just says he has it. Sneaking into the warehouse is pretty easy, but the second I send the warning message to the freedom fighters, Walton Simons calls us on our info link. happening. You know what? I appreciate the efficiency. So many stories have villains who appear pragmatic and ruthless, but then use some overly elaborate method to kill the heroes so they have time to escape. But nope, the moment you betray UNATCO, Simons flips our kill switch and then sicks every last troop on us for good measure. My only question here is why my augmentations still work. Remember, when Paul defected, they shut down his augs and activated the kill switch, but mine are still fully functional.
I hope you'll understand why the Coalition has shut down Paul's augmentations and has activated the kill switch.
Whatever. Maybe Walton fat-fingered the button to turn them back on and didn't notice. I could believe that. He sounded upset. So now, we're on the run. We had a grace period where UNATCO wasn't on our ass, but now the kill switch is flipped, the city is under martial law, unrelated, and every last cop, soldier, mech, and mook are looking for us. I make a beeline for the hotel and meet with Paul. He isn't in climbing condition to get to the rooftop, so I stand and fight to try and get him out of the hotel alive. We get a lot of them thanks to the power of gas grenades, but I'm eventually knocked out and wake up, here. Is anyone there? Hello? Ah, Anna. How's Gunther?
I came to watch you die.
I figured. A mysterious voice speaks on our info link, saying he's about to open our cell door and to run out quickly. Thus begins our no gear section. We've had all our crap confiscated and have to work our way back up to being competent. The good news is that Paul is alive and being held somewhere in this same facility. I wander around, kill all the guards, hack the mechs so they won't shoot me, raid the armory to get all my weapons back, find Paul, he says he'll slip out on his own. Good, no need to escort an NPC. Then I go out the exit door once the mysterious voice in the info link provides a code, and... wait a minute, I recognize this place. This is UNATCO. Paul was right all along. UNATCO is a front for the conspiracy. A lot of people in the agency are okay, like our tech guy, the doctor, and the quartermaster. I tell them all to skedaddle, kill my former boss for fun, and then Anna Navarre confronts me. I would be worried, but by hacking all the computers, talking to every NPC, I was able to learn Anna Navarre's kill phrase. Yeah, instead of a kill switch that takes 24 hours to work, you can just say the right words and Anna Navarre will explode.
Take your best shot, Flatlander woman.
How did you know?
Now that's the kind of game design I'm talking about. A massive reward for thorough exploration, being a way to totally skip having to fight this dangerous enemy. Funnily enough, the conversation triggered while I was facing away from her, and then when it ended, I was immediately faced in that direction. So it looks like JC said the kill phrase, turned around, and stared at the wall while she overloaded. Stone Cold JC Denton. After a few more shootouts, I get to the helipad and Jock is able to fly me to Hong Kong. It's there that we meet Tracer Tong, a genius programmer or something who is able to disable our kill switch, which is currently still counting down. I'll have to earn his trust first though, so off I go. The whole Hong Kong chapter just feels like a non sequitur to me. I mean, we break into a rich lady's apartment to steal a lightsaber, find out she's working for the conspiracy, sneak into a corporate building where we find... oh, it's the red hallway from the intro. Now I understand the sculpture. It's because they want to rule the world. It all makes sense. Sort of. I keep going deeper and deeper into the lab, finding men in black, breaking security systems, weird animals, the Asgard from Stargate SG-1, and enough augmentations canisters to put a lesser man to sleep. I think what I'm doing is breaking the bad guy's universal constructor, which allows them to mass produce the super virus. I admit, the details of everything that happens in this game are a little fuzzy at points, especially in the Hong Kong section, but I do manage to complete the mission and break their big machine. On my way out, Tracer Tong rings up to let me know that the virus was made by the Illuminati, and if we want to know more about that, we have to talk to a man named Dowd. No, not him. This guy. He's stationed in New York, which is a bit underwhelming, the game's just reusing the same area, but it's still fun. The city is almost totally empty by now. People have been fleeing in droves, and the only homeless people in the National Guard are really left. It's almost like California. The streets are just packed with enemies and a few mechs, so I climb to the rooftop, use my spy drone to take down the mechs, and use my sniper rifle to pick off most of the enemies before they can even land a hit on me. Eventually, I find Dowd, and he says there's a whole super freighter full of the virus, which is about to be released. Docked at some secret facility. I go there, get lost several times, sabotage the ship in order to sink it, kill a whole ton of people, and escape. The story keeps winding and twisting this way and that, with us crossing the globe multiple times. I get in touch with a woman in Paris who puts me in touch with the remains of the Illuminati. I go to an Air Force base, solve some problems, go to an abandoned gas station, which is honestly one of my favorite levels in the game for reasons I can't quite put my finger on, and then an underwater base because this game is a James Bond movie, but on my way out of that, I get a call on my info link.
And all you want a bad experiment? You'll be the last prototype we have to discard.
Walton Simons is coming for me. I go out this door and...
If you recall our chat in the break room at UNATCO, you know that I have the same augmentation technology as you.
Then this will be a good fight?
Yeah! JC is so cool. It's tough. He's almost immune to bullets. He runs around really fast dodging my shots, and his energy weapon thing blinds me every time he hits me. I didn't make it. That's okay. My next attempt opens with me firing a grenade launcher at him and killing him in about 2 seconds.
If you recall our chat in the break room at UNAT,
then this will...
with the except...
Again, I appreciate the realism here. You can be the biggest, baddest cyborg with the latest firmware, but all that augmentation won't do much against a 20mm grenade launcher. Next, I head to a rocket silo since Bob Page is planning to launch a nuclear strike towards my allies. I fight my way into the silo and redirect the rocket towards Area 51, where Bob Page is holed up. Now, he's deep underground in a pretty hardcore bunker, so the nuke doesn't actually kill him. I'll have to meet him in person to make that happen. Bob Page's big plan is this. He has access to the entire internet thanks to Area 51, and he wants to merge his brain with an AI named Helios in order to become an immortal internet being that rules over the world through the net. Okay. That sounds like it would be a torturous existence, and your life would depend on the power always being on, but Bob is convinced that he is the future, and will be omniscient if he can just finish his augmentations and merge with Helios. Thing is, Helios itself isn't interested. It wants to merge with me. Since JC has nano augmentations, Helios can merge with his consciousness no problem, and has chosen JC to be its avatar. While I'm fighting through Area 51, I get 3 separate messages from Tracer Tong, the Illuminati guy, and Paul. Tracer doesn't trust the Illuminati. He wants me to destroy the whole internet, which would prevent Helios from taking over in any fashion. He says that would usher in an age of city-states where everyone has maximum freedom and the dystopian permanent surveillance would be over. The Illuminati guy wants me to kill Bob Page and help him take over the world, and Paul is sort of caught in between.
You have a tough choice, JC. If you defeat Page, the Illuminati will move in. They'll release Majestic 12's grip on world governments. They'll give people some freedom, but essentially it will be 20th century capitalism.
You say that like it's a bad thing. Whatever. JC has to choose which side to help. Does he merge with Helios, join the Illuminati, or blow up the entire internet? It's an interesting choice since the game never frames it as good versus bad endings, more like each choice has its benefits and drawbacks. Tracer Tong's move would crash everything and cause a lot of damage, but it's possible it would result in a more free society. The Illuminati basically just want to put the world back the way it was, with normal people being mostly free, but all governments being under their control. And Helios wants to be a benevolent dictator, ruling over humanity in order to guide it to what it sees as the most beneficial outcome, whatever that is. After some deliberation, I kill Bob Page and hand the world over to the Illuminati. Even after playing this game multiple times, I'm still unsure what the right answer to this question would be. It feels like the Illuminati ending prevents most lives lost, but it isn't exactly a bright and sunny solution, handing the world from one invisible ruling class over to another invisible ruling class. Say what you will about medieval times, but at least the average guy knew who the king was and got to see him from time to time, as opposed to going your whole life never realizing who it is that actually controls you. Good thing nothing like that could ever happen in the real world, right? That's right, this is all fiction and bears no resemblance to our current world whatsoever. Aren't you glad the government has your best interests in mind? Isn't it nice to know you can trust your leaders? Ha! If you've made it this far into the video, I congratulate you on your persistence, and thank you for watching. I have never gone this in-depth on a game review before, and all feedback is welcome. And since we're talking Deus Ex, feel free to share your conspiracy theories in the comments. Well-reasoned theories not needed. That's all. Like, subscribe, and get out. Video's over.